I'ma keep winning, winning. I'ma keep winning, winning. Ooh. I'ma keep winning, winning. You can try to save yourself, but you only go.
What's going on, guys? Jake Ham back on our video, and today I'm going to be looking at Mel Kiper's mock draft 4.0. Mel Kiper is one of the main guys that hears a lot of sources and a lot of his opinions, and bases a lot of it off what he's hearing from NFL scouts. So it's very interesting to look at his. This is one of his last ones. I believe he's only going to put out one more mock draft right before the draft. So this is only going to be changed a little bit, and it's his first 2-round mock draft. But before we get into it, please make sure to like the video. Comment down below anything you agree or disagree with that we talk about in here, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for future NFL content that I'm going to be putting out about the draft, since we're exactly 2 weeks away from the draft coming up. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I'm expecting Cam Ward to be the first overall pick. And that is the case. It's pretty much done deal. It's almost the first 3 picks based on sources have been kind of decided pretty much. And number one, obviously, Tennessee going with Cam Ward. If you're at number one, and you're the Titans, you have Will Levis at quarterback. You might as well take that home run swing on a quarterback, and Cam Ward is the quarterback in this draft with the most upside. He has the most. That he definitely has the highest ceiling out of any of the quarterbacks. He just needs to cut down on turnovers and go to the right situation that can do that. And with them having an offensive coach that worked with Joe Burrow the last couple of years and Brian Callahan, hopefully he's able to kind of develop him and get that out of him. He's been in multiple systems, so he can pick up systems quick, going from 3 systems in 3 years and getting better in each and every single one of them. So hopefully everything they've done in free agency can set him up with that better offensive line that they've upgraded to be able to take that next step and cut out those turnovers and pretty much take him number one. So we're gonna go ahead and move past that. That's pretty much solidified. Same thing with number two overall here. A lot of people, including myself, for the longest thought the Browns would end up going Abdul Carter, and I still think that they should. But a lot of the reports, all the signs have pretty much been pointing to that they're going to take Travis Hunter with the number 2 overall pick, and then at some point later in the first round, considering they have the first pick of the second round, they're going to try to move up from that first pick in the second round to the late half of the first to take one of the quarterbacks that's still there on the board. So with them taking Travis Hunter, it does make sense. They could take Carter or Hunter, and it makes perfect sense for them. They just need playmakers, and he could easily be one of the boundary corners for him to be able to come in and step right in and play. They also do need wide receivers. I know they have Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku, but they still need to add more pass catchers for whoever's going to be the quarterback there, whether it's somebody they trade up for later in the first round, or they actually do end up rolling with Kenny Pickett, which would be an insane thing to do, but if they somehow do it, then Travis Hunter would be a good option for him to at least get some production out of him. And he kind of has that explosiveness. It's mostly his ball skills that really make him very good. And him being able to go up and high point the football either from the cornerback position and the wide receiver position, both. That's what makes him a valuable asset here, and being able to be taken number 2 overall. The New York Giants, they take Abdul Carter. It's been recently, a lot of the news and sources has been that they're not taking a quarterback at number 3. They're going to wait a little bit to take a quarterback. They also did sign Russell Wilson and Jameis, so I guess they're going to roll with Russell for a year, hopefully to get that production to save Brian Daboll's and Joe Shane's job, to be able to move on to next year with whatever quarterback they decide then. But Abdul Carter is definitely going to be one of the better pass rushers that they have. They have Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. Thibodeau's been a little bit disappointing. They also do have Dexter Lawrence on the interior. So you can have a nice rotational piece in there, a nice three-way rotation of the edge pieces. Abdul Carter is going to be your main everyday guy. You could also just slide him in there at that edge rusher spot, and you'd probably get more production out of him than Kayvon Thibodeau. And Thibodeau's fifth-year option is going to be coming up here in about a year or two. So you could end up not being able to pick him up. You could potentially trade him, do whatever you want with him, and replace him with Abdul Carter, since he hasn't been living up to all the hype that you would normally want from him. With him being, I believe he was the 5th overall pick. I can't remember the exact one, but he was definitely in that range. So he's not living up to hype. So you go ahead and take Abdul Carter here and not reach on the quarterback that a lot of people would think it would be, and then just wait and get the value later in the draft. And in the Patriots, this is the nightmare scenario for them. They're really hoping that Shador Sanders ends up being taken in the top 3. so that one of Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter falls to him. But here, they're definitely going to be going for offensive line. Will Campbell, that's the main outlook that you're looking at. And Will Campbell comes in. He's definitely, if he gets picked by the Patriots here, he's playing left tackle. I know there's been some concerns with his arm length and everything, but they ended up getting Morgan Moses on the right side. So they still do need a left tackle to slide in there to be able to protect Drake May. They went out and got Stephon Diggs, so it's all about Drake May's development and trying to help him succeed next year, and be the best quarterback that he could be. That's the main focus. So you go and just get some protection here. I really do think that the Patriots would want to move back here, but I don't necessarily think unless some team is trying to move up for Genty, maybe the Bears would be trying to move up here for Genty, then I definitely do think that they're going to end up taking tackle here at the number 4 spot. Maybe the Patriots end up settling on Genty. I know they still have Ramondre Stevenson and a couple guys there, but I wouldn't rule out Genty here at number 4 because he's considered the third best player in this draft, or fourth best player in this draft by a lot of people. And taking him at number 4, I really could see it, but obviously here they're just going to go tackle and get that left tackle spot for Drake May. Jacksonville, this has been pretty much the chalk pick since the beginning of draft season. Mason Graham is going to be going here. They need interior defensive line. They still had Trayvon Walker, and who they picked up the 5th-year option on. They still have Josh Allen on the other side. So with both those two guys on the edge, they had one of the worst interior defensive lines in the league. And you go ahead and try to upgrade that. Mason Graham, there's been some questions concerned about his size. He is a little bit smaller, but with his production and when you look at it on tape with how he plays, he's able to disrupt the pocket. He's able to make a presence in the running game. So it's not really that big of a concern with his size, just because he's able to get the production that you would need. The Raiders, he has Ashton Genty. This is another chalk pick. A lot of this top 10 has kind of started to become a little bit chalk. It's been the same guys. Now, it's not meaning that there's not going to be some surprises on draft night, since a lot of these guys are ranked similarly. But the Raiders taking Genty, I could see, like, maybe if Pete Carroll falls in love with a defensive guy like he did in Seattle, maybe taking a Jalen Walker here. But Ashton Genty is going to be able to help upgrade that Raiders team, help Geno Smith out for the next couple of years, who they just signed an extension to, and it's just going to make that offense better. They have one of the least talented rosters in the NFL, so him being able to come in and be that run heavy offense, and combine it with Brock Bowers that they were able to get, maybe they should probably add a receiver in day 2, but Pete Carroll in Seattle, they were always known as a run first team, especially with Marshawn Lynch. So you're pretty much trying to recreate that here with Ashton Genty and that decent O line that they have up front. And then you still have Brock Bowers, who could come in and play that easy, get the ball out quick at the slot position for the Geno Smith. The Jets, to be able to complete their offensive line, I think that they're going to help try to surround Justin Fields and help him succeed. It could be Tyler Warren here, but they still do need a right tackle, and they haven't really addressed the right tackle slot unless they move Elijah Vera Tucker out to tackle. But Armand Membu would be the perfect fit for him. He come in, he played right tackle in Missouri, he can come slot right in at the Jets. He's very quick off the ball. He has a great first step. He almost never allowed any sacks all year. He has a great technique. He gets a lot of movement in the running game, and that's exactly what you need out of the right tackle. And that would pretty much solidify their offense line with 5 young guys that they can have moving forward. It also solidifies both your tackles. You have Olu Fashanu on one side, and then you'd have Armand Membo on the other side, and hope that he's able to work out for you. The Panthers, this is kind of becoming another chalk pick, is Jalen Walker. The Panthers just need defensive line help. They went out in free agency and signed a bunch of secondary needs, with Trayvon Morrig, and they went out and helped the secondary. They had one of the worst defenses in the NFL. You just need edge rushers and more talented defensive players, and that's what they're going to do here with Jalen Walker. He's a little bit smaller. He only had 6.5 sacks last season. So that's a little bit of the knock on him, but his speed and his combination of speed off the line of scrimmage and his power could hopefully be able to get him to number 8 to be able to develop into a very good pass rusher in the next couple of years, along with the next and have quick production for the Carolina Panthers to be able to help out Bryce Young. Number 9, Shador falls a little bit. He goes here at number 9 to the Saints, which If the Giants don't take him at 3, this is probably the most logical spot unless somebody moves up for him in the draft. Shador, not the biggest fan of. I feel like he creates a lot of the issues for himself in the pocket. He takes too big of drops and he kind of creates pressure for himself. Now he can deliver a pretty good ball. Saints, the Kellen Moore would probably want his own quarterback. I know they signed Derek Carr or whatever deal that they end up having him on, but I think that they're still going to be looking for somebody in the future to get a Kellen Moore guy to be able to take over, and they're going to be moving on from Derek Carr in a year or two. This is an older team that needs to get young, quick, and be better and cheaper. I know that they have their number one guy, their Chris Olave. Alvin Kamara's getting older, so you want to go in and go ahead and get a quarterback like Shador Sanders to come in there and take over for that team, and then you could look at running back at some point in this draft to be able to address and come in and be with Alvin Kamara, and take over for him eventually next year or two as well. Chicago Bears going Tyler Warren. I know they do have Cole Kmet. They ended up upgrading their offensive line a lot with Joe Thuney, Jonah Jackson, so Andrew Dahlman. So they pretty much have their offensive line pretty much set. And if you look at what Ben Johnson did in Detroit, they ran a lot of two tight end sets with Brock Wright and Sam Laporta. So having both them made that Lions team being able to run the ball and being able to attack and pass out of both those sets. And that would be pretty much the same way with this pick that they would have with Tyler Warren. They would be able to run Cole Kmet and Tyler Warren in both slots, be able to run the ball behind both of them because they're both pretty good blockers and they're both able to go out and receive. And you can pretty much line Tyler Warren up anywhere. You can line him up at the end of the line of scrimmage. You can line him up out in the slot. Or if you even want to, you can line him up at quarterback in the backfield in certain wildcat situations. So it pretty much just makes Caleb Williams' progression very much a lot easier to have more weapons in that case to be able to help him out. San Francisco going Will Johnson. I do think this makes a whole lot of sense. Will Johnson has been a little bit questioned with his speed and his injury history. I do think this is a possibility for Jahdae Barron, but they obviously need to upgrade their defense after losing a lot of the guys in free agency like Tre'Davious Ward. And they have Robert Saleh coming back to be their defensive coordinator. He runs a lot of zone schemes, so he's going to be looking for his main cornerback. I do think Jahdae Barron does fit here a little bit better, but the cornerback position in a whole for the 49ers makes a whole lot of sense. I think it's either going to be offensive line or it's going to be corner for them, whichever one they end up taking. But they definitely do need to get a true number one corner, and Will Johnson could be that, or Jahdae Barron, who's going to be more of a slot guy, could end up being that for the 49ers. The Cowboys ended up attacking the running back position and going with Amarion Hampton here. And he's a big back. He's about 6 foot. He's one of the bigger backs in this class, but he also has that vision to be able to make any play on nothing. He's very patient running style. So when he's running the ball, he's able to go out and see the vision and be able to read his blocks very well and be very patient to be able to attack where he needs to go. And he's able to have that great combination of speed and power that he has with that being able to be patient and read it. And the Cowboys just need to upgrade at running back. They ended up letting Rico Dow go in free agency. So their running back room is currently Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. They easily could address this later in the draft. So I definitely, in my latest mock draft, I had him going with Tedero McMillan. I could easily see him going for a number 2 wide receiver alongside with CeeDee Lamb and waiting to go running back in the second round. Maybe going to get Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins in the second round. But they definitely do need to attack offense and get a running back position at some point. If Marion Hampton's on the board, it makes perfect sense for him. 13, Jahdae Barron ends up going here. He could be a great slot guy. They don't really have a whole lot of corners on their roster. To be a CB1 or CB2 next to Jalen Ramsey. All they have is their next best guy is Storm Duck. So I could see them easily going with offensive line here. That's usually what I have them mocked as is to go offensive line instead of cornerback. But cornerback also makes sense. Those are the two biggest needs that they're going to need. They need to protect Tua and be able to go out and get a CB2. And Jahdae Barron fits that very well. He could play in the slot. He could potentially be a boundary corner as well, alongside with Jalen Ramsey. But either way that they go, they're either going to go offense or corner, in my opinion. The Indianapolis Colts. They go Colson Loveland. Tyler Warren's already off the board, and I think they're going to try to work on progressing Anthony Richardson. And that's exactly what Colson Loveland is. He could be able to be that slot guy that you're going to get the ball out quick to so he can go out and make a play. And that happens a lot in today's NFL, especially with the Raiders. That's exactly what Brock Bowers was. That's pretty much what Colson Loveland could be for a team. Now, he's not going to have the impact that Brock Bowers had, but he'd be that similar style for them to be able to develop Anthony Richardson and hopefully get him enough weapons. And if he doesn't work out with these weapons, then he's definitely not the guy. And then they're going to have to move on from him probably next year if he doesn't work out this coming up year. The Atlanta Falcons go with Mike Green, Marshall outside edge rusher, and Mike Green was the most productive player in college football. He dominated pretty much the entire offseason. He dominated the Senior Bowl, and if you look at his production, he had the most sacks in the NFL in college football last year. He had the most tackles for loss in college football. So with him being able to come in, the Falcons just need edge presence, and Raheem Morris, their head coach, is going to know that. So with him coming in and being able to be the pick, they're gonna have to upgrade that defense line after letting go Grady Jarrett, especially the edge position, just get that defense better. The Arizona Cardinals, this is definitely a sneaky team to go receiver, and I agree with this 100%. I think Matthew Golden is the perfect pick for the Arizona Cardinals, especially alongside Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr., there's been that report that maybe they regret taking him, but he's a great number one option, and Matthew Golden could be a guy they can move all around the field on the outside, be that speed threat, and line him up mainly in the slot option and be a complementary piece alongside Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think that makes perfect sense if you're really looking at it, and that's really where the Arizona Cardinals want to go to try to get more weapons for Kyler Murray. Now they're gonna have to attack the interior defense line and the offense line at some point in this draft, but Matthew Golden I think is gonna be a great fit in there in that offensive scheme, especially with Trey McBride as well. And just being able to have those three in there would be a great complementary pieces to one another with Kyler Murray. The Bengals, this is a little bit interesting. Them going with linebacker Jahad Campbell, but they definitely do need defense, and they need defense bad. They spent so much money on the offensive end. I could see them going with a edge rusher like a Shamar Stewart, who's fallen down the board a little bit here, but Jahai Campbell is seen as a very high end prospect, and he could come in. You lost Sam Hubbard; he ended up retiring, so he can come in and take over that spot as the interior linebacker. And a lot of teams really like Jahai Campbell. He's ranked very highly by a lot of these teams, and they just need to upgrade their defense and get defensive talent on this team and figure out the Trey Hendrickson situation. Seattle Seahawks going Kelvin Banks. This makes they need offensive line help. They do need more interior offensive line help. But depending on what Abraham Lucas does, if he ends up struggling, then he could take over at the right tackle spot for Abraham Lucas. Kelvin Banks is one of my favorite offensive linemen in this class. He's overall my number one offensive lineman with him. However, he's able to get movement, his technique that he has, and how he's able to play it on that Texas offensive line. He was a 3-year starter, so he has the experience. He's 6'5". I think that he's going to be more of a tackle in the NFL than a guard, but you could easily draft him to play interior and play that guard position. The Buccaneers, I usually have them going with Jahad Campbell, but he's not here on the board, obviously. So they go Nick Emmanwori. Emmanwori had probably one of the best safety combines in NFL history, and it makes sense for the Bucks to get somebody to go ahead and play next to Antoine Winfield to be able to pair them up. Emmanwori is going to be more of that box safety that's going to be more of a downhill defender, and he's a big safety, 6'3", 220. He's pretty much huge. He's going to be able to guard tight ends, play in the box to help with support the run, and be able to play in coverage. And I think he's going to be the number one safety off the board. And I think he fits in here with this Buccaneers team that could go edge, could go safety, or they could go linebacker. They could go any of those three, and I really wouldn't be surprised. Denver Broncos, Tedero McMillan falls down the board a little bit, and Sean Payton definitely gets his offensive weapon. They're going to try to get a weapon to go with Bo Nix to make his life easier. They ended up getting tight end Evan Ingram in free agency. So I think they're either going to be looking at wide receiver or running back. If Amarion Hampton makes it here, they could easily take him on Hampton at 20. I think that would be the pick. But obviously, he gets taken number 12 to the Cowboys. So they're going to go Tedero McMillan here to be able to try to help out Bo Nix and make his life easier to help progress him and get a weapon for Sean Payton that he can move around the offense from inside in the slot position or on the outside, especially with his crazy wingspan that he has and his 6'5" build, along with the speed and his catch radius. Bo Nix would really enjoy this. Now, I'm interested by this. Pittsburgh Steelers pass on Jackson Dart, which a lot of people really have them taken, and he says that he originally had them taken here in his comments. But they go with Derek Harmon, who's one of the probably the most pure pass rushers from the interior slot, and really, they don't have a second round pick, so it'd definitely be interesting to see what they would do here at that quarterback slot. If they would move up and trade some picks to try to get one of the second round picks, maybe some future picks to try to get a quarterback, or they're just gonna roll with who they got and just let it play out. But Derek Harmon would be a great interior piece to go alongside with Cameron Hayward. The Chargers here, they would go with Gray's able to play guard or center. Now here, he's probably going to play guard next to Zion Johnson, I would assume. But he could play pretty much all five positions. He could play center, guard, or tackle. Most of the time, people have him getting drafted to Seattle as a center, but he could play pretty much all of them, and he dominated the Senior Bowl whenever he went out. And he kind of Mel Kiper's kind of comparing him to Trevor Penning, being the only non-FBS offensive lineman to be selected in the top 22 picks. But I think he's a lot more than that. He's going to be a better player than that. He's very aggressive, and he's going to be a great interior piece. And Jim Harbaugh pretty much just gets the guys that he wants to beef up that offensive line to be able to run the ball down people's throat. Green Bay Packers, they're going edge rusher Michael Williams, and this makes sense. Their edge presence kind of fell off towards the end of the year. They could easily go corner here, but they haven't dealt with the Jair Alexander situation yet. So until they deal with that, I guess we'll see what happens there. And they could easily go with wide receiver, but I feel like the wide receivers that are left on the board, they're not really a true number one wide receiver. So that just really put them in the situation that they're in right now. So them going Michael Williams is more of a project guy that reminds me a lot of Trayvon Walker. That's going to take about a couple of years to develop. He has all the tools that you'd want though, and he has that freak body size and that body that you would want out of an edge rusher. You just have to be able to develop him in a situation that I think the Packers would be able to do. They did it with Rashawn Gary. He'd be very similar to that. So him being able to step in and be on the other side, and be able to be that edge presence. The Minnesota Vikings, they end up adding Will Fries and Ryan Kelly, but Mel Kiper still has them going with Donovan Jackson, guard from Ohio State. Donovan Jackson's one of my favorite offensive linemen in this class as well. He's definitely gonna go higher than what people think. He could sneak into the first round here to a team like the Vikings. I do think that they could go safety, but Nick Warriors off the board. So Donovan Jackson makes a lot of sense for them here. To be able to sure up that interior offensive line to help out J.J. McCarthy and play the other side. The Texans over Josh Simmons go Josh Connerly Jr. Now they ended up trading Laremy Tunsil and Kenyon Green, so they're pretty much reworking their entire offensive line, and they need to be able to go and get the guy that they want. To be able to help out CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud was sacked a ton in the playoffs by the Kansas City Chiefs, and they definitely do need to help out CJ Stroud some way after trading Laremy Tunsil, and they're gonna have to get a franchise left tackle. And Josh Connerly here in the situation is their guy to be able to slot in there and be their left tackle. The Rams are actually going to pass up on Josh Simmons, and they're going to work on getting the future and drafting Jackson Dart. Like Mel Kiper said here, he would be the future heir apparent to Matthew Stafford, even though Matthew Stafford restructured his deal and got another year onto it. That doesn't mean that they're not going to be ready for a guy to come in and develop. Sean McVay, he's an offensive genius, so he's going to be able to pretty much come in and develop a quarterback to be able to take over right after Matthew Stafford is done. And I think if there's another team in the first round that's going to take Jackson Dart, not the Browns trading up or the Steelers, it's definitely going to be the Rams in this late half. The Ravens, Malachi Starks just kind of falls in their lap. They end up pairing him up with Kyle Hamilton, and this is pretty much what they've done before. Kyle Hamilton they just kind of sat back and waited. They took the best player on the board, and that's exactly what they did in Kyle Hamilton, and they're going to do the same thing here with Malachi Starks to pretty much pair them up and have one of the best secondaries in the league with Nate Wiggins, Malachi Starks, Kyle Hamilton, several of those guys. Troy Lions get another edge rusher, Donovan Roku from Boston College. This is somebody that they can pair up alongside with Aiden Hutchinson. They've really been looking for that other pass rusher. They try to go with Za'Darius Smith, who they're bringing back for another year. Um, but they ended up releasing him. So they really do need another edge rusher alongside Aiden Hutchinson. And Ezeruku really has the production and the talent that you really want. So he has the potential and he actually has the talent on tape. He's similar to Shamar Stewart, but he actually has the numbers to be able to back it up. And speaking of Shamar Stewart, that's who goes to the Commanders, who they're going to help try to upgrade their edge presence. They had one of the worst defensive lines in football last year. Jonathan Allen ended up having to go because he was disgruntled with the organization. And with having one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, how do you do that? You have to upgrade it and pick through that. And here they take Shamar Stewart to be able to upgrade that. He's another guy with all the potential in the world. He didn't really have the production at Texas A&M that you'd want, but he blew up the combine. He ended up being having one of the best combines in NFL history, along with Nick Emmanwori. So a lot of teams are going to see that potential and want to take him in the first round. And then you have the Buffalo Bills taking Maxwell Harrison. Harrison's a guy that he definitely has his tackling issues and he can get burnt sometimes in coverage, but he has that speed to make up for it. And at the combine, he ran a 4.28 40, and so it shows off that speed that he's able to kind of make up for in coverage. And the Bills definitely do need secondary help. They got torched in the playoffs. Kamir Elam was pretty much the reason that they ended up losing most of those games. He was getting picked on once he had to come in, and Maxwell Harrison could come in and be that other corner that could end up solidifying them. But he definitely has his question marks around him for whatever team ends up picking him. The Chiefs, they let Josh Simmons fall into their lap, and he would pretty much be their left tackle of the future. He did have his knee injury, and he could have been potentially the tackle number one in this class if he didn't have that season-ending knee injury. But the Chiefs, obviously, Patrick Mahomes got killed in the Super Bowl. He got sacked plenty of times, and Josh Simmons would be able to come in and take over that left tackle spot after they traded Joe Thuney, who was actually playing left tackle, even though he's a guard. And he would take over that left tackle spot and pretty much start right away, probably as long as he's healthy. And he would be that protection for Patrick Mahomes for many years if he ends up working out. And then the Eagles, they do this every year. They let the best player fall into their lap. James Pierce does have those character concerns. They just lost Josh Sweat in free agency. James Pierce really has that production that you'd want from 2 years ago, but last year he didn't really have the production. He kind of fell off. But at the combine, he ended up having a very good day at the combine, especially athletic ability. But it's really the character concerns. But Philadelphia Eagles kind of have the culture in the locker room to be able to handle that. They handled it with Jalen Carter, who also had character concerns. So they would pretty much just get another edge presence here that could be able to handle it, that they can pretty much keep in their locker room to pretty much keep under control. And then looking at some of the second round picks, he has two quarterbacks going off the board real quick. Cleveland Browns going with Tyler Slott. That would be a surprising pick over Jalen Milroe. But having him to the Browns are definitely going to go quarterback at this spot in round two, unless they move up. Jalen Milroe, the Giants. Olu to the Tennessee Titans. They need another edge rusher to replace Harold Landry. Buka ends up falling to the Jaguars to go alongside with Brian Thomas. Swinger, linebacker, UCLA, probably the second best linebacker in the class, go the Raiders. Panthers ended up getting another weapon in Luther Burden alongside with Stephon Diggs. The Bears end up having a very good draft, getting Tyler Warren, then Walter Nolan with 39, who I think is going to be a first round pick, but he ends up falling in a situation. Thomas from Florida State ends up going to the Saints to be alongside with Kool-Aid McKinstry. And then the Bears come back and get their running back that they end up passing on with Amarion Hampton, and they get Travion Henderson to be able to step in there. Jets get a tight end with Elijah Aurora, very big body tight end that ends up stretching the field vertically for Justin Fields. Kenneth Grant to the 49ers to be that interior piece that they lost on defense. Trey Amos, some more offensive line help for the Colts. Falcons working on the defense alongside with that edge player that they took in the first with Mike Green. So then they take Benjamin Morris. Offensive line help in the second round. I think Tyler Booker, he's one of my favorite offensive linemen in this class as well, alongside Banks. But he should go in the first round. But there's a lot of talk that he's going to fold on the boards. Darius Alexander is another interior defensive tackle that could go. There's a lot of good starters. Judkins to the Broncos, Ravel to the Seahawks. There's a lot of starters in the draft. It's a very deep class if you're looking at it from a starter standpoint. There are not many stars, but there's going to be a lot of starters where teams are going to pick them, and they're going to be very good starters for a long time in this league. And that's what makes this a deep class in the first 2 to 3 rounds. So that's all I'm going to be looking at Mel Kiper's mock draft 4.0. If you want to look at it, it's on ESPN Plus. It's 2 rounds. Please make sure to like the video. Comment down below anything you agree or disagree with that I talked about in here. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for future NFL content I'm going to be putting out. And thanks for watching.
Yeah, feel like John Moran. Need a triple-double. Told him check the stats. Yeah, I got a couple. I don't drop the ball. Now I never fumble. I'm the MVP. Now I feel like Russell. Feel like John Moran. Need a triple-double. Told him check the stats. Yeah, I got a couple. I don't drop